My mother-in-law gifted my daughter lingerie with a note that said, "You're beautiful. Why not show it off?" 2 years later, she lured my other daughter from school by texting, "Once you start making real money, they'll understand." Weeks later, I found them in a cabin filling out her OnlyFans bio. As a protective mother, I went insane. I entered the foster care system at 11 years old and never got adopted. So my dream has always been to form a chosen family. I always had this image of me, my future husband, his parents, and our kids all hanging out together, laughing and drinking lemonade in summer. But it never happened. Not because my husband wasn't amazing, he was, but because my mother-in-law is psychotic. Not just the dirty looks, passive-aggressive psychotic. She was a spiteful geriatric mess. For starters, she was a mattress actress, and she was proud of it too. At first, I had absolutely nothing against her working in the sex industry. That's her forte, and I was happy that she was doing well and enjoying what she does. My only concern was surrounding her openness, especially with my daughters. For my oldest daughter's, Kate, 16th birthday, my mother-in-law gifted her with a designer pink and glittery undergarment set. It was wrapped in tissue paper with a card that read, "You're beautiful. Why not show it off?" And a few weeks later, during a family dinner, she randomly began to boast about her earnings from content creation. I thought it would end there, but then she turned to my 14-year-old daughter Lily and said, "If you ever want to make real money without a boss breathing down your neck, just let me know." I shot my husband a sharp glare. His eyes were already widened, and told our girls to go upstairs. "Get out of my home," he whispered, but his voice was cold. It was relieving to see him not take any of her shut. That night, we had a very serious conversation with her over the phone. We said if she continued to promote her role as a digital performer, then we had no problem cutting her off for good. A long silence followed, one that made me think that the point had gotten across, so we just hung up. We never saw her again, until 2 years later, that is. It was Kate's 18th birthday, and she begged for her granny Janice to attend. My husband and I had a very long, in-depth discussion about it. We decided to allow her to come, mainly because it was at a sushi restaurant, so we figured not much could go wrong. Fast forward to the big day. We were halfway through dinner when Janice and Kate disappeared to the bathroom together, as if I'd let that happen. As soon as they were out of my view, I followed them. But instead of walking in, I put my ear to the door. As soon as I heard the words financial freedom and living life on your own terms, I barged right in. I caught Janice in the corner swiping through her OnlyFans statistics on her phone. When she saw me, she had a smirk plastered on her face. I'm just showing her what she deserves. A white-hot, maternalistic rage boiled my blood. I lifted my hand to grab Kate's wrist and drag her out. When we got back to the table, I stared my husband dead in the eye and said, "We're leaving." As soon as we arrived home, Kate was angry, but not at Janice. "You're just old-fashioned prudes," she yelled with a weird strength in her voice. A wave of nausea crept into my stomach and my husband looked shocked. Suddenly, all privacy went out the window and I grabbed her phone. I flashed it at her face for face recognition, and what I saw made my eyes nearly pop out of my head. In her camera roll were dozens of intimate photos of not just her, but also her 16-year-old sister, Lily. "Kate, what have you done?" "Ugh, Janice knew you'd react like this. This is exactly why I don't tell you anything," she interrupted. I ran upstairs to the bathroom and locked the door. Call me entitled, but at that point, I knew I had every right to go through Kate's phone. She had already set up a mattress actress account and had posted almost 10 bikini videos to her TikTok, promoting it too, all for the monthly subscription price of $6. I broke down. Where had I gone wrong? My baby girl really believed she was worth less than the price of a large coffee from Starbucks? But the more I swept through her phone, the more it made sense. For the past 4 years, even before we cut her off, Kate and Janice had been talking almost every single day. Practically every conversation consisted of Janice discouraging her from studying for exams or doing homework, because there was a better opportunity waiting for her. She had painted selling your kitty cat for less than a double scoop of Baskin-Robbins ice cream as liberating. I was so shocked that I couldn't even move, so I just screenshotted everything, other than the intimate photos, and sent it to my husband right from my daughter's phone. Not even 30 seconds later, I heard the keys jingle and the front door slam shut. I knew he had left. I didn't know what to do. It was one of those parenting moments no one could prepare you for, so I just started crying. Hard. That's when I heard a knock on the bathroom door. It was Kate. She sat beside me and apologized. "I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted to make quick money so you and Dad wouldn't have to work so hard." Her voice sounded so innocent. I told her it was okay, and just held her. Suddenly her phone buzzed. It was Janice FaceTiming her. Turns out grooming my daughters was only the tip of the iceberg of her scheme. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. While the girls were still asleep, I created a detailed spreadsheet tracking every piece of evidence I'd gathered about Janice's operation. Username links, screenshots of conversations, affiliate codes, everything that proved she wasn't just corrupting her granddaughters, but running a full-blown recruitment network. The early morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen blinds, casting striped shadows across my laptop screen as I meticulously documented everything. My husband sat beside me at the kitchen table, nursing his third cup of coffee. The bitter aroma filled the kitchen, mixing with the scent of toast I'd made but neither of us had touched. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He hadn't slept much either. His normally neat appearance was disheveled, yesterday's shirt wrinkled, his hair uncombed, stubble darkening his jaw. "We need to contact the platforms," he said, scrolling through my findings. "Get Kate's account shut down immediately." His voice was hoarse from lack of sleep, but determined. The gentle click of his mouse punctuated the tense silence as he reviewed the evidence I'd compiled. I nodded. "And we need to figure out how many other girls Janice has recruited. There could be dozens." The thought made my stomach turn, imagining other young girls being manipulated the same way our daughters had been. The spreadsheet on my screen showed at least 15 different usernames that Janice had mentioned in conversations with Kate, each potentially representing another victim. The sound of footsteps on the stairs made us both look up. The creaking of the third step, always the loudest, announced someone's approach. Kate appeared in the doorway, her face pale and drawn. She looked younger somehow, more vulnerable than I'd seen her in years. Her normally perfectly styled hair was tangled, her eyes puffy from crying, her shoulders hunched as if carrying a physical weight. I couldn't sleep. she mumbled, sliding into a chair across from us. The wooden chair legs scraped against the tile floor, the sound harsh in the quiet morning. I keep thinking about everything. She wrapped her hands around an empty mug, seeking comfort in the familiar object. I reached across the table and took her hand. Her fingers were cold in mine, trembling slightly. We're going to fix this, honey. I tried to inject confidence into my voice that I didn't entirely feel. How? Her voice cracked. Those pictures are already out there. A fresh tear slid down her cheek, dropping onto the polished wood of our kitchen table. My husband set down his coffee mug with a decisive thud. Coffee sloshed over the rim, leaving a dark ring on the table that neither of us bothered to wipe away. First, we shut down your account. Then we report Janice's accounts for promoting underage content. His voice had a steely quality I rarely heard, the voice he used when something threatened our family. Kate's eyes widened. But what if people at school find out? Her voice quavered with fear. The social implications suddenly seemed to hit her. The potential ridicule, the whispers in hallways, the permanent digital footprint that could follow her for years. It was a valid concern. The social fallout could be devastating. I remembered my own high school years, how vicious teenagers could be even without social media amplifying every mistake. One step at a time, I assured her, though my stomach twisted with worry. Right now, let's focus on damage control. I pushed my laptop toward her, opening a new browser window. With Kate's permission, we logged into her account. The site loaded slowly, each passing second increasing my anxiety. 3 subscribers had already paid the $6 fee. I felt sick seeing the usernames, knowing these strangers had viewed my daughter's photos. The profile page was mercifully new, with minimal content uploaded, but even that was too much. We deleted everything, then permanently closed the account. The process required multiple confirmations, each click of the mouse feeling like a small victory. Next came her TikTok. The bikini videos had garnered hundreds of comments, many directing viewers to her adult content page. The comment section was filled with inappropriate remarks that made my skin crawl, knowing these were directed at my teenage daughter. We deleted those too, then changed all her passwords. I created a document with the new credentials, passwords complex enough that they couldn't be easily guessed. What about Lily? Kate asked quietly. Does she know what's happening? She fidgeted with a loose thread on her sleeve, not meeting our eyes. The morning sunlight highlighted the worry lines on her forehead, lines no 18-year-old should have. Not everything, I admitted. We'll talk to her today. The thought of having this conversation with my younger daughter made my chest tighten with anxiety. How do you explain something like this to a 16-year-old? How do you protect their innocence while ensuring they understand the danger? As if summoned by her name, Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas, her phone clutched in her hand. Her hair was tousled from sleep, her favorite worn unicorn slippers on her feet, reminders of how young she still was. Why can't I log into Instagram? She demanded. It says my password is wrong. Her voice held the typical teenage indignation of having her online access disrupted. I took a deep breath. Sit down, Lily. We need to talk. I patted the chair beside me, preparing myself for one of the hardest conversations of my life. Explaining the situation to a 16-year-old was even harder than I'd anticipated. We kept the details vague, focusing on how Janice had manipulated both girls for her own financial gain. The kitchen grew warmer as the morning progressed, but Lily's face grew increasingly pale as understanding dawned. So those pictures of me, Lily's voice trailed off, her cheeks flushing. She stared down at the table, tracing the wood grain with her fingertip. The realization of what had happened, what could have happened, seemed to hit her all at once. Were never posted online, I assured her quickly. They were only on Kate's phone, and we've deleted them. I reached out to squeeze her hand, feeling how cold her fingers had become despite the warmth of the kitchen. Grandma Janice said I was pretty, Lily whispered. She said I could be a model. Her voice held a mixture of confusion and betrayal. The sunlight streaming through the window caught the tears welling in her eyes, making them glisten. My heart broke. Honey, you are beautiful. But what Janice was suggesting wasn't modeling. It was exploitation. I struggled to find words that would help her understand without traumatizing her further. The kitchen clock ticked loudly in the background, marking the painful seconds of silence that followed. The conversation was painful but necessary. By the end, both girls seemed to understand the gravity of the situation, though I knew it would take time for the full impact to sink in. Kate sat with her arm around Lily's shoulders, their heads bent together in a gesture of sisterly support that gave me a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. After breakfast, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The harsh vibration against the countertop made me jump. I picked it up hesitantly, already suspecting who it might be. You think you're so clever. Those girls could have had everything. Now they'll have nothing. Janice. The words seemed to leap off the screen, dripping with malice. I showed the message to my husband, whose jaw tightened. The muscle in his cheek twitched as he clenched his teeth, a sure sign of his barely contained anger. Block the number, he said. She's trying to get under your skin. He took the phone from my hands, his fingers moving quickly to block the contact. But it was too late for that. Janice was already under my skin, like a festering splinter I couldn't extract. Her words echoed in my mind, raising doubts I fought to suppress. Had we done the right thing? Were we overreacting? The rational part of me knew we weren't, but Janice had a way of planting seeds of uncertainty. Throughout the day, more messages came from different numbers, each one more threatening than the last. Those pictures might find their way online anyway. Your precious daughters came to me. They wanted this. You can't protect them forever. Each text made my blood run colder. I blocked number after number, but they kept coming. Janice was relentless, using burner phones or messaging apps to bypass my blocks. That evening, a package arrived at our door. The doorbell rang just as we were sitting down to dinner, the sound making all of us tense. No return address. The brown paper packaging gave no clue to its contents or sender. Inside was a pink lace lingerie set, similar to the one Janice had given Kate 2 years ago, but smaller, Lily's size. The delicate fabric felt like a threat in my hands, making my skin crawl. A note was tucked inside. She'll come back to me when she's ready for the real world. The handwriting was unmistakably Janice's, loopy and dramatic, with hearts dotting the I's. I threw the package in the trash, my hands shaking with rage. The thud of it hitting the bottom of the empty bin was satisfying, but not enough to calm the storm of emotions raging inside me. "We need to get a restraining order," my husband said when I showed him the package. He paced the kitchen, his footsteps heavy on the tile floor. "This is harassment. It's threatening." His voice was tight with controlled anger, his hands clenched at his sides. I nodded, but something held me back from involving authorities. The potential exposure, the humiliation for the girls if this became public record. There had to be another way. The thought of our family's private trauma becoming part of public court documents, potentially accessible to friends, neighbors, and future employers, made me hesitate. The next day, I dropped the girls off at school with strict instructions to come straight home afterward. No detours, no hanging out with friends. They protested but eventually agreed. The school parking lot was busy with morning drop-offs, parents and students hurrying through the light drizzle that had started overnight. I watched until both girls were safely inside the building before pulling away, my windshield wipers beating a nervous rhythm that matched my heartbeat. While they were at school, I continued my investigation. Using the fake profile I'd created, I infiltrated deeper into Janice's network. The private forum was a goldmine of information. The screen glowed with disturbing conversations as I scrolled through page after page, taking screenshots and notes. Janice wasn't just recruiting girls. She was teaching others how to recruit. She had created a multi-level marketing scheme for exploitation, complete with training materials and commission structures. "Target girls with low self-esteem," one of her posts advised. "Girls with family problems are easiest. Single parents, financial struggles, body image issues. They're looking for validation and quick money." The clinical way she described targeting vulnerable young women made my stomach turn. I could almost hear her voice as I read the words, imagining her explaining these techniques to other predators. Another post made me physically ill. "Family connections are gold. If you can recruit within your own family, you get loyal creators who won't report you. Plus, the taboo factor increases subscriber interest." The implications were clear. She had been deliberately targeting her own granddaughters not just for direct exploitation, but because the family angle was marketable. The thought made bile rise in my throat. She had been using my daughters as bait. The sister angle was apparently a popular niche that commanded higher subscription fees. I printed everything, adding to my growing file of evidence. The printer hummed in the background, spitting out page after page of damning evidence. Each sheet I added to the folder felt like another nail in Janice's coffin. Then I noticed a section of the forum I hadn't explored yet: success stories. There, I found posts from Janice bragging about her star recruits. Most usernames were obviously fake, but one caught my eye. Lily Rose 2006. My daughter's name and birth year. My heart stopped, the blood rushing in my ears nearly drowning out the sound of the printer. Clicking on the profile, I found a post from 3 months ago. "My youngest granddaughter is almost ready. Been getting her ready since 14, just waiting for her to turn 16 to launch her page. Already have interested subscribers lined up." The room seemed to tilt. The words blurred on the screen as tears filled my eyes, a mixture of horror and rage making it hard to breathe. Janice had been planning this for years, methodically preparing to exploit my youngest daughter the moment she was legally old enough. And based on the comments, she had subscribers waiting, not because Lily had any content posted yet, but because Janice had been teasing her upcoming talent to her existing network. The premeditation was chilling, revealing a level of calculation I hadn't fully grasped until that moment. I was still reeling from this discovery when my phone rang. The shrill sound cut through my shocked silence, making me jump. The school. The caller ID displayed the number I had programmed into my contacts for emergencies. My hand trembled as I answered. "Mrs. Walker? This is Principal Sanchez. I'm calling because Lily wasn't in her afternoon classes today." The principal's voice was professionally concerned, giving no indication that she understood the gravity of what this might mean. My heart stopped. "What? She should be there. I dropped her off this morning." My voice sounded strange to my own ears, high and tight with panic. The room suddenly felt too warm, too small, as if the walls were closing in. According to her friends, she left during lunch period, said her grandmother was picking her up for a doctor's appointment. The casual way she delivered this information made it clear she had no idea of the danger Lily might be in. I nearly dropped the phone. "Call the police. Now my mother-in-law has taken my daughter without permission." The words came out in a rush, my breath coming in short gasps as adrenaline flooded my system. "She's not authorized to take her. This is an abduction." The next hours were a blur of panic. Police reports, phone calls, my husband racing home from work, his face ashen, Kate crying, blaming herself. The house became a command center of frantic activity, officers taking statements, phones ringing, neighbors stopping by after seeing the police cars parked outside. Lily got a text during lunch, Kate admitted through tears. She sat on the couch, hugging a throw pillow to her chest as if it could shield her from what was happening. She showed it to me. It was from Grandma Janice saying she needed to talk to her about something important. I told her not to go, but she said it would just be for a few minutes. Her voice broke on the last word, fresh tears streaming down her face. The police tracked Lily's phone to a motel on the edge of town, but by the time they arrived, the room was empty. The neon vacancy sign buzzed and flickered outside, casting an eerie red glow over the parking lot as officers searched the premises. The clerk remembered an older woman and a teenage girl checking in 3 hours earlier, then checking out in a hurry just 30 minutes before police arrived. "They left this behind," the officer said, handing me Lily's phone. It was in the trash can. The device felt unnaturally heavy in my hand, like it contained all my fears and failures as a parent. The screen was cracked, as if it had been deliberately damaged. I scrolled through her recent messages. The last one from Janice read, "Don't worry about your parents. Once you start making real money, they'll understand this was the right choice. Meet me outside the cafeteria. Don't bring your phone. They might be tracking it." The timestamp showed it had been sent during Lily's lunch period, just as Kate had said. She had planned this, waited until we were distracted by Kate's situation to target Lily directly. The calculated nature of it made my blood run cold. This wasn't an impulsive act. It was the execution of a plan that had been in the works for years. Back home, I paced the living room while my husband made call after call to anyone who might have seen Janice. Old friends, distant relatives, former neighbors. No one had heard from her in months. The carpet beneath my feet became worn with my constant movement, back and forth across the same path as if physical motion could somehow bring my daughter back. Mom? Kate stood in the doorway, her face streaked with tears. The afternoon light from the window cast half her face in shadow, highlighting her resemblance to her missing sister. I think I know where they might be. Her voice was small but determined, a flicker of hope in the darkness of uncertainty. She led me to her room and pulled out a shoebox from under her bed. The cardboard was worn at the corners, decorated with stickers and doodles, a typical teenage keepsake box. Inside were dozens of postcards and small gifts from Janice, sent secretly over the years, trinkets and mementos that now seemed sinister in their deliberate cultivation of a secret relationship. She has this cabin, Kate explained, showing me a postcard of a small wooden structure beside a lake. The image showed a rustic building surrounded by pine trees, the kind of picturesque setting that normally evoked peace, but now filled me with dread. She took me there once, 2 summers ago when you and Dad thought I was at basketball camp. She called it her freedom retreat, where she did most of her content creation. She couldn't meet my eyes as she admitted to the deception, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of the postcard. My hands trembled as I turned the postcard over. No address, just Janice's loopy handwriting. Our secret place, where you can be truly free. The words took on a sinister meaning now, the promise of freedom revealed as a trap. Do you know where it is? I asked urgently, gripping Kate's shoulders perhaps too tightly in my desperation. The fabric of her sweatshirt bunched under my fingers as I fought the urge to shake the information out of her faster. Kate nodded. I think so. It's about 3 hours north near Lake Meredith. It's really isolated. She pulled out her phone, opening a map application to show me the general area. There's a dirt road that leads to it. You can't see it from the main road. We gave the information to the police, but they warned us it would take time to get a search warrant, especially with only a vague location to go on. The officer's words seemed to move in slow motion, bureaucratic caution when every second counted. We'll need to coordinate with the county sheriff up there, he explained. Jurisdiction issues, and we need more specific information to get a judge to sign off. We don't have time, I told my husband after the officers left. The front door had barely closed behind them when I grabbed my car keys from the hook by the door. If Janice gets Lily to that cabin, who knows what she'll convince her to do. The thought of what might be happening while we waited for official channels was unbearable. He grabbed his car keys. I'll drive. You navigate. His face was set with determination, jaw clenched and eyes focused. In that moment, I saw the same protective fury I felt mirrored in his expression. Kate insisted on coming too. I know what the cabin looks like, and Lily might listen to me. She was already pulling on her jacket, her movements quick and decisive. For the first time in years, I saw the determined little girl she had once been, before Janice's influence. The drive was tense, with Kate directing us based on fragmented memories. Rain started falling as we headed north, making the winding forest roads treacherous. Fat droplets pelted the windshield, the wipers struggling to keep up as visibility decreased. The rhythmic swish-swish of the wipers and the rumble of tires on wet asphalt were the only sounds in the car, each of us lost in our own thoughts and fears. Night was falling by the time we reached Lake Meredith. The rain had intensified, turning the world outside our car windows into a dark, watery blur. It's down one of these dirt roads, Kate said, peering through the rain-streaked windows. I remember there was a big dead tree at the turnoff. She pressed her face close to the glass, straining to see landmarks in the gathering darkness. We drove slowly along the main road, headlights illuminating the dense forest on either side. Pine trees loomed like sentinels, their branches swaying in the wind and casting moving shadows across the road. After what felt like hours, Kate suddenly pointed. There! That's the tree. The lightning-struck pine stood stark against the skyline, its bare branches reaching toward the cloudy sky like skeletal fingers. My husband turned onto a narrow dirt track, our headlights bouncing off puddles and overhanging branches. The car lurched and bounced over the uneven ground, mud splattering the windows as we navigated around potholes filled with rainwater. The headlights cut through the darkness, revealing glimpses of the dense forest closing in around us. Call the lights, I whispered, as a small cabin came into view through the trees. The structure was barely visible in the darkness, a darker shadow against the night sky, but a faint glow from the windows confirmed it was occupied. We don't want her to see us coming. My husband switched off the headlights, plunging us into near-total darkness broken only by the dim glow from the dashboard. A battered SUV was parked outside, not Janice's usual vehicle, but the rental company sticker was visible on the bumper. We'd found them. The realization sent a surge of adrenaline through me, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure the others could hear it. We parked a short distance away and approached on foot, the rain soaking through our clothes. The cold droplets ran down my neck and back, but I barely noticed, focused entirely on reaching my daughter. The ground was slippery with mud and wet leaves, making each step treacherous in the darkness. Through a window, I could see light inside the cabin. A warm yellow glow spilled out onto the wet ground, creating a rectangle of light in which raindrops glittered as they fell. As we crept closer, voices became audible over the sound of rain pattering on leaves and roof. Just for a few months, Janice was saying. Her voice drifted through the partially open window, carried on the damp night air. You'll make enough to move out on your own, away from your controlling parents. Don't you want freedom? The familiar manipulation tactics made my blood boil, hearing them directed at my younger daughter. I don't know. Lily's voice sounded small, uncertain. The hesitation in her tone gave me hope that she hadn't fully bought into Janice's scheme. Mom and Dad would be really upset. Through the window, I could see her sitting at a small table, her posture tense and uncomfortable. They're upset because they don't understand. They're stuck in the past. This is the future, Lily. Financial independence. Making your own choices. Janice's voice was smooth, persuasive. The voice that had likely convinced countless young girls to make choices that would haunt them for years. I'd heard enough. I nodded to my husband, and we burst through the door. The wooden door banged against the wall as we entered, the sound like a gunshot in the quiet cabin. Janice was sitting at a small table with Lily, a laptop open between between them. The cabin smelled of musty wood and Janice's overpowering perfume, the air close and warm compared to the cold rain outside. On the screen was a half-completed profile form for an adult content site. Lily's name and a recent photo of her were already filled in, the cursor blinking in the bio field, as if waiting for the next step in this nightmare. Lily jumped up when we entered, her face a mixture of relief and guilt. "Mom! Dad!" She took a step toward us, then hesitated, caught between us and Janice. Janice didn't seem surprised to see us. She leaned back in her chair, a smug smile playing on her lips. The lamplight cast harsh shadows across her face, emphasizing the calculating look in her eyes. Well, the cavalry has arrived. Her voice was cool, unbothered, as if we were unexpected but not unwelcome dinner guests, rather than parents rescuing their child. "Get away from my daughter," I snarled, moving toward Lily. My shoes squeaked on the wooden floor, still wet from the rain outside. I reached for Lily, who came willingly into my embrace, her body trembling slightly against mine. "Your daughter came to me willingly," Janice replied coolly. She tapped a manicured nail against the wooden table, the sound unnaturally loud in the tense silence. "Didn't you, Lily?" Her eyes narrowed as she looked at my daughter, a silent warning in her gaze. Lily looked down, tears welling in her eyes. "You said we were just going to talk." Her voice was barely audible, a whisper of betrayal and confusion. A drop of water fell from her hair onto the floor, the tiny splash echoing her words. "And we did talk. About your future. About opportunities these narrow-minded people would never show you." Janice gestured dismissively toward us. The gold bracelets on her wrist jangled with the movement, a discordant sound in the tense atmosphere. My husband stepped forward, his voice deadly calm. "You're never going to contact our daughters again. This ends now." His shoes left wet prints on the wooden floor as he moved closer to Janice, his tall frame imposing in the small cabin. Janice laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the small cabin. The wooden walls seemed to amplify it, making it sound more maniacal than she perhaps intended. "Or what? You'll call the police? Go ahead. I'll tell them how your precious daughters came to me for help, how they wanted to escape your controlling household." She crossed her arms over her chest, confidence radiating from her posture. "We have evidence," I said, pulling out my phone. The screen illuminated my face in the dim cabin as I pulled up the files I'd saved. "Screenshots of you recruiting underage girls. Posts where you brag about doing what you're doing to your own granddaughters. The police already have copies." The lie came easily, justified by the circumstances. That wiped the smile off her face. For the first time, Janice looked uncertain, the confidence drained from her expression, replaced by a flicker of fear. "You're bluffing," but her voice lacked conviction, the slight tremor betraying her concern. "Am I?" I pulled up the forum posts I'd saved, showing her own words condemning her. The screen glowed blue in the dimly lit cabin as I held it toward her, evidence of her own depravity reflected in her widening eyes. "You've been sloppy, Janice. Too proud of your success to keep it quiet." The rain drummed harder on the roof, nature's percussion accompanying the confrontation. Her eyes darted between us and the door, calculating her options. The lamp on the table cast long shadows across her face, highlighting the sudden tension in her features. "Lily, Kate, wait in the car," my husband said, his eyes never leaving his mother. The protective authority in his voice left no room for argument. "But Dad," Kate began, stepping forward from where she'd been standing near the door. The floorboards creaked under her weight, the sound oddly domestic in the tense standoff. "Now." The single word held enough force to send both girls hurrying out the door. The rush of cold, damp air as they left momentarily freshened the stuffy atmosphere of the cabin. "You've manipulated your last child," I told her, my voice shaking with rage. I could feel my pulse in my temples, hear the blood rushing in my ears as years of frustration and recent horror coalesced into pure, protective fury. "You don't understand anything," Janice spat. She stood up suddenly, her chair scraping loudly against the wooden floor. "I was helping those girls, giving them opportunities." Her face was flushed with anger, her carefully applied makeup beginning to smear with sweat. "You were exploiting them for commission," my husband corrected. His voice remained calm, a stark contrast to Janice's increasing agitation. "Using your own granddaughters as bait to lure in other vulnerable girls." The disgust in his tone was palpable, hanging in the air between them. Janice's facade finally cracked. The mask of the caring grandmother slipped away, revealing the calculating predator beneath. So what? They were going to do it anyway. Might as well be under my guidance. At least I taught them how to be safe, how to maximize profits. Her words came faster now, defensive and revealing. "By charging $6 a month?" I laughed bitterly. "You convinced my daughter she was worth less than a fast food meal." The absurdity of it struck me anew, the devaluation of my child's dignity for pocket change. "That was just the starting price," Janice snapped. She paced the small room, her heels clicking on the wooden floor like an angry metronome. "Once she built a following, we would have raised it. Exclusive content packages, private requests. The real money comes later." Each word out of her mouth made me more certain we'd made the right choice coming here. "Here's what's going to happen," my husband said, his voice eerily calm. The steady drumming of rain on the roof punctuated his words, nature's percussion to this final confrontation. "You're going to shut down your recruitment operation. All of it. The forums, the affiliate links, everything. You're going to disappear from our lives permanently." Janice sneered. "Or what?" But the bravado couldn't mask the uncertainty in her eyes, the first flicker of genuine fear as she realized the depth of the evidence against her. "Or every parent whose daughter you've targeted gets a copy of your posts. Every platform you use gets reported. And we press charges for attempting to produce explicit content featuring a minor." My husband's voice remained level, but the threat was unmistakable. The color drained from Janice's face. "You wouldn't." The confidence was gone now, replaced by naked fear. The lamplight seemed to age her suddenly, revealing every line and shadow on her face. "Try me," he replied. "My priority is protecting my daughters. If that means destroying you in the process, so be it." The absolute certainty in his voice left no room for doubt. This was not a bluff or an empty threat. It was a promise. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain hammering on the cabin roof. The rhythmic patter filled the silence between us, nature indifferent to the human drama unfolding beneath its downpour. Then Janice slumped in her chair, suddenly looking every one of her years. The fight seemed to drain out of her, leaving behind a shell of the intimidating figure she had been moments before. "Fine," she muttered. "I'll shut it down." Her voice was barely audible over the rain, defeat evident in every syllable. "Now," I insisted, "while we watch." I moved closer, standing over her as she sat at the laptop. The screen's glow illuminated her face from below, casting strange shadows that emphasized her sudden appearance of age and defeat. Under our supervision, Janice deleted her forum accounts, her content pages, her affiliate links. With each deletion, she seemed to shrink smaller, her empire of exploitation crumbling with a few keystrokes. The clicking of the keyboard and the occasional confirmation dialogue were the only sounds besides the rain, a digital dismantling of years of predatory behavior. When it was done, my husband took the laptop. "We're keeping this as insurance. If we see any sign that you're starting up again, or if you contact our daughters, everything goes public." He closed the laptop with a decisive snap, tucking it under his arm like the valuable evidence it was. Outside, the rain had stopped. The sudden absence of its constant drumming made the night seem unnaturally quiet. The girls were waiting in the car, huddled together in the back seat. As we approached, I could see they were talking intently, Lily wiping away tears while Kate had an arm around her shoulders. The headlights were off, but the interior light cast a soft glow over their faces, highlighting their resemblance to each other and their youth and vulnerability. The drive home was quiet. The wet roads glistened under the moonlight that occasionally broke through the clouds, reflecting our headlights like a river of stars. Lily eventually fell asleep against Kate's shoulder, emotionally exhausted. The gentle rhythm of her breathing was the only sound in the car besides the hum of the engine and the swish of tires on wet pavement. In the rearview mirror, I caught Kate's eye. "Thank you," I mouthed. Without her memory of the cabin, without her willingness to admit her own role in what had happened, we might never have found Lily in time. She gave a small nod, then looked out the window at the darkness rushing past, her profile illuminated by passing streetlights as we neared civilization again. It was nearly dawn when we arrived home. The first hints of sunrise colored the eastern sky as we pulled into our driveway, pale pink and gold streaks promising a new day. As the girls trudged upstairs to bed, their footsteps heavy with exhaustion on the stairs, my husband pulled me into a tight embrace in the kitchen. The familiar scent of him, coffee and rain and the faint trace of his cologne, was comforting after the nightmare of the past 24 hours. "We got lucky," he whispered against my hair. If Kate hadn't remembered the cabin, his voice broke, unable to complete the thought. The possibilities were too horrifying to voice, hanging unspoken between us. His arms tightened around me, as if the physical connection could ward off the what-ifs that threatened to overwhelm us. "What do we do now?" I asked, pulling back to look at him. The early morning light filtering through the kitchen window illuminated the exhaustion on his face, the worry lines that seemed to have deepened overnight. "We heal," he said simply. "All of us, together." He brushed a strand of hair from my face, his touch gentle despite the strength I knew he possessed, the strength that had faced down his own mother to protect our daughters. In the weeks that followed, we focused on rebuilding trust and open communication. The girls started therapy, both individually and as a family. We had difficult conversations about self-worth, exploitation, and the false promises of easy money. Around our kitchen table, in therapist offices, during long walks in the park, we talked more openly than we ever had before, breaking down the walls that had allowed Janice to insert herself between us. Janice remained silent. Whether out of self-preservation or genuine remorse, I couldn't tell. But the threatening texts stopped. The packages stopped. It was as if she'd vanished from our lives completely, leaving only the damage we were working to repair. One evening, about a month after the cabin confrontation, Kate knocked on our bedroom door. The soft tapping was hesitant, almost timid. She was holding a small stack of papers, the edges slightly crumpled as if she'd been clutching them nervously for some time. "I wrote something," she said hesitantly, "for my therapy homework, about everything that happened with Grandma Janice. My therapist thought it might help to share it with you." She handed me the papers and quickly left, not waiting for our response. Her footsteps hurried down the hallway, retreating to the safety of her room. My husband and I read them together, tears streaming down our faces as Kate detailed years of subtle manipulation, how Janice had systematically undermined her self-esteem while simultaneously building herself up as the only adult who truly understood her, how the lingerie gift had been preceded by months of comments about Kate's appearance, creating insecurities Janice then exploited. The pages revealed a calculated campaign that had begun years earlier than we'd realized, with seemingly innocent comments and small gifts that gradually normalized inappropriate boundaries. "We missed so many signs," I whispered, horrified by how methodical her acts had been. The bedside lamp cast a warm glow over the pages, but couldn't soften the cold reality of what they contained. "We didn't know what to look for," my husband replied, his voice rough with emotion. "But now we do." He placed the papers carefully on the nightstand, treating them with the respect they deserved. Kate's first step toward healing and our education in prevention. The next day, I called Kate's therapist and asked for resources on recognizing grooming behaviors. I ordered books, joined online support groups for parents, and started compiling information. If Janice had targeted my daughters, she had targeted others, and there were more predators like her out there. The kitchen table became my research station, covered with books, printouts, and my laptop as I educated myself on the warning signs we'd missed. 2 months after the cabin incident, I started a blog anonymously sharing our experience and the warning signs we'd missed. I was careful to change identifying details, but the core story remained the same: a trusted family member using us for exploitation. The response was overwhelming. Comments poured in from parents who'd experienced similar situations, from survivors of exploitation, from educators and counselors. Many shared their own stories of manipulation by people they should have been able to trust. My chosen family was healing, not the picture-perfect vision I'd once dreamed of, with lemonade on summer evenings and harmonious family gatherings, but something stronger, forged in crisis and built on honesty. The foster child in me had always craved belonging, but I discovered that real family wasn't about perfect harmony. It was about facing challenges together and emerging stronger. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table laughing at one of Lily's school stories, I looked at my husband and daughters and felt a profound sense of peace. The warm glow of the dining room light illuminated their faces, highlighting the genuine smiles that had been absent for too long. We'd faced the unimaginable and come through it together. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be setbacks, difficult days, moments when the trauma resurfaced, but we would face them as a family. My phone buzzed with a notification. Another comment on my latest blog post. Thank you for sharing your story. You helped me recognize what was happening to my daughter before it was too late. I smiled and set the phone aside, returning my attention to my family. The family I'd always wanted. The family that had survived its greatest test.